Today, we're diving into a dynamic that's so much more than just a personality clash. We're talking about the narcissist and the empath, but not just as a psychological thing. We're going to look at it as the meeting of two ancient, almost archetypal forces. The predator of the soul and the healer of the wound, locked in a dance that's as old as time. And the big question we're asking is, what happens when the music finally stops?
So, to really get what happens when that music stops, we're going to break this journey down into 4 parts. First up, we'll look at the ancient dance that pulls them together in the first place. Then we'll get to that critical turning point when the mirror cracks. From there, we'll see the 2 diverging paths that each go down, which leads us to the final transformative stage, the sovereign awakens.
Okay, so it all begins with this ancient dance. And this isn't just about, being attracted to someone. It's deeper. It's like a silent contract, an unspoken agreement where each person is unknowingly fulfilling a deep, profound need in the other.
What makes this dynamic so incredibly powerful is that it taps into something archetypal, something ancient within us. Think of it like a psychic lock and key. It's a pattern that has played out for centuries, a silent deal where one person provides an endless supply of validation and the other just consumes it.
And right here, you can see how perfectly these roles fit together. You've got the narcissist, who is terrified of their own inner emptiness, acting as this predator of the soul, constantly searching for validation. And then you have the empath, who is driven to heal, becoming the perfect source, offering that endless supply to try and fill a void that can never be filled. In a way, they're perfect partners in avoiding their own inner work.
But here's the thing. A performance like that, it just can't last forever. Sooner or later, the mirror cracks. And that is the critical moment. It's when the unspoken rules get broken and the whole show, which has been sustained by its audience of one, finally grinds to a halt.
And this is the catalyst. It's that single moment of refusal, the moment the empath just stops dancing to the narcissist's tune. Now, this isn't just a simple disagreement. Oh no, it's an act that sends a seismic shock through the narcissist's entire being, because it threatens the very foundation of the self they've built.
And that's because, you see, the narcissist persona isn't really who they are. It's an elaborate suit of armor. It's been carefully constructed to hide this trembling, wounded child inside, the part of them that is terrified of being worthless. And the empath's constant validation? Well, that's what keeps the armor polished. Without it, the armor starts to tarnish, and then it cracks.
So what leaks through when that armor cracks? The shadow. For the narcissist, their shadow holds everything they just cannot bear to look at. Their shame, their terror of being insignificant, their bottomless hunger for love. So when the empath pulls away, the narcissist isn't just losing attention, they are being forced into a terrifying, head-on collision with the inner darkness they've spent their entire life running from.
And facing that darkness is completely unbearable, so they react in some really predictable ways. First, you might see rage, an attempt to scare the empath back into line. If that doesn't work, they might retreat into a fantasy world where they're still the hero. And finally, they might try to reinvent themselves, putting on a new mask of being changed or sorry, all to lure the empath back into that old destructive dance.
This moment of rupture, it's a huge fork in the road. It doesn't just end a relationship, it actually sets both people on 2 completely different journeys. For one, it's a path of incredible psychic expansion. And for the other, it's a path of collapse.
For the empath, breaking free is, of course, terrifying, but it's also incredibly liberating. Their whole inner world starts to shift. You might even see it in their dreams. They start dreaming of vast, open spaces, endless oceans, deep forests, huge open skies. And this isn't just escapism. It's the soul, which has been trapped in the tiny box of someone else's needs, finally stretching its limbs and exploring its own territory again.
But for the narcissist, it is the exact opposite. Their inner world literally becomes a prison. All that psychic energy, with no external mirror to reflect it, just collapses inward. Their dreams might become claustrophobic. Houses with the walls closing in, stages where the lights suddenly go out, phones that ring and ring with no answer. It's the beginning of a descent into a psychic wasteland, a reflection of the emptiness inside.
And to cope with this collapse, the narcissist will often scramble to find a new mask. They can become the hunter, desperately searching for a new source of supply, or the ghost, just vanishing into a world of fantasy. Some become the tyrant, trying to manipulate the empath to come back, while others become the wounded king, just raging at a world that no longer bows down to them.
But let's get back to the empath,
This final stage is so important. We have to reframe this painful experience, see it not as a failure or just a trauma to get over, but as something way more powerful, an initiation into a completely new way of being.
So let's be crystal clear here. This is not just a breakup. It's not even close. It is a rite of passage. The intense fire of this dynamic is what forces the empath to step out of that old role of being the selfless healer and into the uncharted territory of their own power, their own needs, their own sovereign self.
You know, in psychology, there's a name for this. Carl Jung called it individuation. It's the psyche's natural drive toward becoming whole. By stepping away from the massive gravitational pull of someone else's needs, you finally allow your own psyche to rebalance itself around your center, not theirs. You start becoming who you were always meant to be. And this kicks off a profound shift in identity. You go from being the sacrificial one to being the guardian of your own life. You stop being a mirror for their redemption and you become your own inner sovereign. The endless giver finally learns that sacred and powerful word, no. You stop being just a character in their story and you become the hero of your own.
Ultimately, this whole journey reveals a critical truth. Your healing was never about them having some kind of breakthrough. The real soul's work was never about trying to fix their mask. It was about taking off your own, that mask of the caretaker that you were taught you had to wear.
And that brings us to the final, and really the only question that matters. I mean, we could speculate all day about what happens to the narcissist alone on that empty stage, but the real journey, the real story, that begins with you. Who do you become when you are no longer defined by their reflection? Because answering that question, that's the beginning of a whole new dance, one where you finally learn to move to a rhythm that was never theirs to set in the first place.